What's up, guys? Andy here. So today's topic is quite important. There's no getting around it. In the realm of nutrition and mental health, it's a somber subject matter in some regards. Certainly for myself personally, this month, February, 7 years ago, I lost, one of my best friends to mental health struggles, and so I take it upon myself to the best of my ability share as much of the best available information I can around nutrition and mental health outcomes. And this goes across a broad array of categories. Today specifically, we're going to talk about anxiety, and there won't be the usual jokes in this video. Obviously, there's some subject matter which is off limits even for myself, and so what I want to discuss is a little bit about, the problem of anxiety being the most common, by the way, the most commonly diagnosed mental health disorder globally. Okay, anxiety is number one, depression is number two. That they represent the majority of cases, and of course there are a number of other mental health conditions which are less prevalent, obviously equally important, but less prevalent. My friend Josh, who I just alluded to, I want to mention him in this video. He was a mental health researcher at the time of his passing. I'm actually going to put the link not only to my blog on nutrition for anxiety, but also I'm going to put a link to his posthumous publication, which has to do with schizophrenia and antioxidants and things of that nature. So you can check it out if it interests you. But I'm obligated, of course, to shout out my friend. So look, let's talk about nutrition for anxiety and the areas of inquiry here within. First thing to note. Look, anxiety is a complicated condition. Okay, I'm not going to pretend to say that some dietary changes will resolve it all. We do know, and we are increasingly aware, that dietary improvements can improve mental health outcomes, and can improve symptoms of anxiety, of course, and being in a better state from the nutrition perspective can make you more resilient to such conditions. But of course, mental health conditions are complex and multifactorial, so I don't want to break it down. I don't want to simplify it too much. So, that's a slight warning, shall we say. Okay. So what are the areas of inquiry when it comes to nutrition and anxiety outcomes? Number one is probiotic supplementation. Okay, so you guys have heard of the gut-brain connection. Okay, this is one of the foremost areas of interest in nutrition research. Now, what we know is the following, okay, and it's emerging evidence. It's not necessarily concrete, but there's increasing evidence to suggest that probiotic supplementation can actually reduce the severity of anxiety symptoms. The exact types of probiotics to use, not super clear. It's usually a mix of the lactobacillus or different bacterium strains. I probably just butchered a couple of names. It's all good. We're going to do this in one take anyway. So that's something to consider. There's also something to be said for fermented foods. Okay, so these are foods with meaningful amounts of healthy bacteria, like potentially like your yogurt, your kefir, your kombucha. There may be something there. Obviously, enhancing the state of the gut microbiome has a potential, okay, to improve mental health outcomes, reduce the severity of anxiety symptoms. So it's certainly something to consider, okay? A lot of emerging evidence, more evidence required, but, that's what we know. Secondary of inquiry is the totality of dietary antioxidant intake, which is probably just a fancy way to say, eating more fruits and vegetables. But dietary antioxidants come in different forms. For example, like vitamin E, which is found in avocados and almonds and sunflower seeds, okay? And then you have, beverages that have antioxidants like coffee and tea and things of that nature. But basically what studies show is that people living with anxiety, they tend to have lower circulating levels of dietary antioxidants in their blood. So it follows that, the improvement of dietary antioxidant intake could have some positive benefits. Certainly from what I've seen when it comes to mental health research in the scope of depression and anxiety, and I know today's about anxiety specifically, certainly what I've seen is that there's interest around the role of neuroinflammation, which is a fancy way of saying inflammation in the brain cells, and how anti-inflammatory foods, antioxidant-rich foods being in that category, interact with that to improve symptoms. So there's something there. Again, guys, link in the description for my full article to see the studies that I'm talking about, just to learn a little bit more about what this really means. But that's the second point of consideration. The third, which carries on from the second, is omega-3 fatty acids. Okay, so omega-3s are very unique, and you'll notice I'm constantly bringing them up. It's because they are what I call elusive. Okay, elusive meaning they're not in very many foods. Okay, so you have the plant form omega-3s found in flax, chia, walnuts, hemp, soy, a little bit, and then you have the animal form, which is essentially found in fatty fish. Okay, salmon, mackerel, sardines, and so on. Okay, and then here and there's omega-3s a little bit around. But those are the two main sources. With the sources here, and also, by the way, the fish-based sources, which contain the EPA and DHA, are the omega-3s that are most often studied. Okay, so you can also get those, by the way, in supplemental form, fish oil, etc., and from algae-based supplements. So these nutrients are accessible to vegans and vegetarians if they plan appropriately. But basically, the studies show that a poor omega-3 status may predispose people to anxiety, and that omega-3 supplementation in conjunction as well with vitamin D supplementation could improve outcomes. More research required, as always. I have to put that caveat there. Vitamin D, you don't need me to talk about that. Top selling supplement on Amazon.ca for good reason. Vitamin D is really only found in fish. So look, I mean, if you want to talk, mental health superfoods, salmon, which is very high in vitamin D and omega-3s for those who eat it or who could eat it, certainly something to consider. Okay, that brings us to, actually, that's the last point. I want to briefly mention CBD. Okay, because CBD is a compound, legal here in Canada or Ontario at the very least. I'm actually not sure about the other provinces. Pretty sure it is. It's one of those low risk, so it's a low risk. Let's consider a supplement of sorts. It's it doesn't give the high, let's say, that THC does. It's available in capsule form and oil form and all these different forms. There is some evidence to suggest that it has a quicker onset and I guess a lower risk of dependence and things of that nature than some other types of medications. Obviously, CBD doesn't replace anxiety medication, but it's an area of interest. It's an area of inquiry. I've written on CBD as well, so I'll put the link in the description if you want to check it out. But other than that, guys, have a great day. Hope you enjoyed this video, and a lot of mental health content coming this month, so stay tuned.